In this video, we'll be taking a look at 4 NBA games happening on January 20th, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 8 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 4 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Phoenix Suns vs. Philadelphia 76ers. The Phoenix Suns and Philadelphia 76ers meet on Tuesday at Xfinity Mobile Arena, and it shapes up as a pretty interesting spot for both teams. The Suns are coming in off wins over the Knicks and Nets with the Hawks on deck, and they have quietly taken 12 of their last 17, which is no small thing over a stretch that long. They have also pulled off some eye-catching results lately against the Thunder and the Knicks, so they are not just beating soft competition, they are taking swings at real contenders and landing them. On the other side, the 76ers just lost to the Cavs, bounced back against the Pacers, and now have the Rockets next. So their schedule has not exactly been light either, but their run of 7 wins in 11 games does not feel quite as convincing as what Phoenix has been doing. There is some uncertainty baked in too, because the Suns are still missing Jalen Green even if everyone seems to expect him back soon, while the 76ers are watching Paul George on a day-to-day basis with that knee issue. That kind of situation, especially for the 76ers, gets even trickier when they are in the second game of a back-to-back, because you never really know who might be pulled late for rest. Both teams are on the back end of a back-to-back set here, and in a vacuum that should give the 76ers a tiny nudge because they are at home and do not have to hop on a plane. Here is the thing though, the Suns keep getting rewarded at the window, and people who have trusted them have not had much reason to stop. They are sitting at 29-12-2 against the spread this season, which is the best mark in the league, and they have covered 8 of their last 10, so recent form against the number matches the bigger body of work. There is also the small but real chance that Phoenix is close to fully healthy soon if Green really is on the verge of returning, which only makes it easier for them to hang around in tight games, especially when they are catching points. Home court has not exactly been a fortress for the 76ers either, as 11 of their 18 losses have come in their own building, so that usual home boost has been a bit fragile. So even while the schedule spot slightly favors Philadelphia, the combination of the Suns' current form, their strong spread record, and the shakier home results for the 76ers tilts this matchup toward taking the points with Phoenix if you are choosing a side. As our first pick for this matchup, the Phoenix Suns to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The Suns are averaging 114.7 points on 46.2% shooting and allowing 111.9 points on 46.8% shooting, which already points to a team that plays in plenty of games that land in the 100 teens. They are hitting 36.5% of their threes and 79.5% at the free throw line, and they are pulling down 43.2 rebounds per game, so they space the floor well enough and clean the glass well enough to keep their offense humming for long stretches. The 76ers numbers push things in the same direction. They are averaging 116.7 points on 45.5% shooting and giving up 115.4 points on 46.5% shooting, so they live in that same scoring neighborhood where both teams can comfortably get into the mid-100 teens. They are knocking down 35.5% from beyond the arc and 81.6% at the free throw line, while allowing 34.3% shooting from deep and grabbing 44 rebounds per game. When you put all of that together, you have 2 offenses that score at a healthy clip, 2 defenses that give up plenty of points, similar rebounding numbers in the low to mid-40s, and solid efficiency from 3 in the stripe on both sides. Games like that often turn into trading baskets for long stretches, and if both teams find even an average rhythm, the scoring can stack up faster than it feels in real time. There is also the subtle factor that back-to-backs can hurt defensive energy more than offensive feel, since tired legs can mean late closeouts and soft contests even if the offensive skill level stays the same. So with both teams already living in that mid-100 teens range on both offense and defense, and with efficient shooting profiles that support good scoring nights, this matchup points toward a game where the total has a strong chance to land above the projected number rather than below it. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. San Antonio Spurs versus Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets play host to the San Antonio Spurs at Toyota Center on Tuesday night. Both teams are actually coming in with a bit of swagger, which makes this matchup a lot more interesting than the records alone might suggest. San Antonio just took care of the Jazz and the Timberwolves, and they see Utah again after this one. They have 3 straight wins, so their confidence is not fake. It is built on real recent results. They will again be without Devin Vassell, which does sting a little on both ends, but the core that has been winning these games is intact. Houston has its own little surge going. They beat the Timberwolves and Pelicans, and they have the 76ers waiting after this, so the schedule has not exactly been soft. They have taken 3 of their last 4, which lines up with the idea that they are starting to get back into the kind of form people expected earlier. They have been excellent in their own building with a 14-3 straight-up record at home, and that is the kind of number that usually earns you favorite status almost by default. Of course, the injury report complicates things a bit. The Rockets are ruling out Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams, with Tari Eason sitting in that annoying gray area as questionable. The Spurs, on the other hand, already know they are missing Vassell, so as odd as it sounds, their situation is a bit more settled. That is part of why it feels like San Antonio has been the healthier group lately, even if they are the ones stuck in the second game of a back-to-back set, which naturally makes this spot a little trickier for them. If you zoom out a bit, Houston has some real matchup edges that explain the line. They have won 7 of the last 10 meetings against the Spurs, which suggests this is not a one-off stylistic fluke. They have that strong home record, they have the rest advantage, and all of that adds up to a team that should be favored on their own court. So on the surface, it totally makes sense that the Rockets are slight favorites in this spot. Here is where it gets interesting. Against the spread, the story softens for Houston and leans toward San Antonio. The Spurs are 23-20-1 against the number this season, while the Rockets sit at 19-21, which is not a disaster but not anything to brag about. Since November 26th, the Spurs are 8-4 against the spread as underdogs, and 7 of those covers came as outright wins, which shows they are not just hanging around, they are stealing games people thought they would lose. They also already beat the Rockets back in November as a 5.5 underdog, which is a nice little reminder that this matchup is not one-sided. So you have one team with the rest edge and a strong home record, and the other with the better against the spread resume and more consistent value when catching points. Rest advantage aside, the overall body of work this season has tilted slightly toward the Spurs, especially when you compare what bettors actually get when backing each side. This feels like the kind of game that stays tight for long stretches, where every small run swings the spread back and forth a bit. In that kind of setting, taking the points with the team that has been more reliable against the number makes sense, even if it feels a bit contrarian against a strong home side. A minor upset on the road is not out of the question if San Antonio keeps playing the way it has over the last few weeks. As our first pick for this matchup, the San Antonio Spurs to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. In the second legs of Miami's 7 back-to-backs this season, 4 of those games have finished with 224 points or fewer, and another landed right on 225. That little detail shows how legs can get heavy late in these spots, especially on offense, even if the teams involved are capable scorers. It is a small sample, sure, but it does remind you that scheduling quirks can gently drag totals downward. The stronger clues, though, sit in the recent trends for these two teams. The under is 8-1 in the Spurs' last 9 overall and 6-0 in their last 6 on the road, which is not the kind of pattern you shrug off. For the Rockets, the under is 11-2 in their last 13 games, which screams that their games have been living on the lower scoring side lately. On top of that, the under is 6-2 in the last 8 head-to-head meetings between these teams, so even when both of these specific rosters collide, the scoring has been held somewhat in check. Pace backs that up. Houston plays at the 4th slowest tempo in the league at 101.1 possessions per game, and that alone is a big anchor on totals. San Antonio sits in the bottom half of the league in pace as well, so this is not a matchup where one side is trying to sprint and the other is trying to walk. Both teams are comfortable in slower, more methodical games where each possession matters a bit more. Personnel nudges things toward a lower total too. Spurs guard Devin Vassell, who averages 15.0 points per game, has missed the last 11 and is doubtful again, which takes a steady scoring option off the floor. Earlier we were talking about him as out, and doubting his return here still leaves the same practical point. His production is unlikely to be available. Houston is without Tari Eason and his 12.0 points per game as well, so both sides are missing players who could push the score up in a hurry. When teams are already playing slow and then lose solid offensive contributors, the ceiling on the total usually drops a bit, even if the stars still do their thing. It is also helpful to remember what happened the last time these teams met. A total of 231 points were scored on November 7th in San Antonio, which on paper looks like a clear overtype result. But in that game, Houston went 13 of 27 from 3, and the teams combined to shoot 42 of 46 at the free throw line. Those are elite efficiency numbers, borderline perfect from the stripe, and expecting that same level of shooting again is a stretch. If those numbers cool off even to normal league averages, that previous total probably lands quite a bit lower. So when you put the slow pace, the missing mid-tier scorers, the heavy under trends for both sides, and the unlikely repeat of that hot shooting game together, the picture that emerges is a matchup more likely to lean toward a lower scoring outcome than a shootout. It might still feel competitive and tense, just not wildly high scoring on the final box score. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Los Angeles Clippers versus Chicago Bulls. The Los Angeles Clippers and Chicago Bulls square off on Tuesday at the United Center, and it is not nearly as straightforward as it might look at first glance. Both teams come in with a mix of confidence and question marks, which is usually where things get interesting from a betting angle. The Clippers just beat the Raptors and the Wizards, and they have the Lakers on deck next. They have won 13 of their last 15 games, so in terms of recent form, they look like one of the hottest teams in the league. They even managed to sneak past the Wizards in a tight one last night without Kawhi Leonard, which shows some resilience, but also hints at how much they had to expend to get it done on the first leg. Chicago's recent stretch has been more uneven on paper, but not without positives. They split a mini set with the Nets, took care of the Jazz, and now have the Timberwolves waiting after this matchup. The Bulls have won 11 of their last 19 games, which is not dazzling, but it does show they are competing better than their reputation sometimes suggests. Injuries hang over this matchup on both sides. For the Clippers, Bradley Beal, Derrick Jones Jr., Bogdan Bogdanović, and Kawhi Leonard are all ruled out, which strips away a lot of firepower and flexibility. On the Bulls side, Zach Collins is out, while Patrick Williams and Josh Giddey sit in that questionable zone that can swing their rotation and energy if either one returns. That is part of why it feels like a spot where you really would like to see the confirmed lineups close to tip, especially if Giddey is able to go, because his presence adds stability and playmaking to an already scrappy group. Even so, you can already feel how the narrative is forming around the Clippers. They have rattled off 6 straight wins, they are the buzz team, and that kind of streak tends to attract casual bettors almost automatically. It is exactly the kind of situation where every handicapper and tout circles the same side, pointing to the momentum and brushing aside a shaky performance like the narrow win over the lowly Wizards. The Bulls, by contrast, carry the label of inconsistency, and it is not entirely unfair, since they have mixed some strong showings with some flat, ugly outings this season. Here is where the number itself starts to look a bit dangerous. When one side appears too obvious, that is often where the odds makers lean into the public perception, shading the spread in a way that feels generous on the favorite. The Clippers feel like the safe play on the surface, riding a streak and facing a team many people do not trust, but that safety can easily be the bait. Chicago's volatility, oddly enough, becomes a weapon in this spot because they are fully capable of playing with energy, hitting shots, and dragging the game into a physical, chippy style that suits a home underdog trying to flip the script. The deeper numbers support some skepticism about Los Angeles on the road. The Clippers are just 8-14 straight up in away games, which undercuts the idea that their current streak automatically travels with them. The Bulls, on the other hand, are a surprising 13-9 straight up at the United Center, which hints that their home floor has given them more of a boost than people might assume. In other words, the line speaks more to those home and road splits than to the recent winning streak alone, which is often a clue that the market is a step ahead of the simple narrative. When you fold all of that together, you get a matchup that sets up as a classic fade-the-crowd opportunity. The Clippers are banged up, on zero rest after an unconvincing win, and stepping into a building where the Bulls have quietly been solid. Chicago's swings in performance can be frustrating, but they also give them the ceiling to meet this kind of moment and turn what looks like an obvious spot into a rude surprise for anyone blindly riding the streak. So while the eye test and recent results might nudge many toward Los Angeles, the sharper angle leans to backing the Bulls at home to take advantage of this setup and handle their business against a vulnerable road opponent. As our first pick for this matchup, the Chicago Bulls to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Clippers are averaging 112.3 points on 47.3% shooting from the field and allowing 113.3 points on 46.8% shooting. They are hitting 36.8% of their three-point attempts and a strong 84.4% from the free throw line, while pulling in 40.3 rebounds per game. Those numbers suggest a team that is efficient enough offensively, especially from deep and at the stripe, but also one that gives up almost as much as it scores. The Bulls sit on the other side with a slightly higher scoring profile but a leakier defense. They are averaging 117.5 points on 47.3% shooting and allowing 121 points on 47.5% shooting. From beyond the arc, they are at 35.9%, and at the free throw line they check in at 78.5%, while grabbing 45.6 rebounds per game. So Chicago crashes the glass better and tends to play in higher scoring environments, but their defensive numbers open the door to both shootouts and games that hinge on which side cools off first. On the surface, those stats could nudge someone toward expecting a high-scoring matchup, with both teams living in the 100 teens and defenses that are hardly stingy. However, context matters a lot when you are talking about a single game total rather than season-long averages. In this particular spot, the Clippers are missing several key offensive pieces, including Kawhi Leonard and others who help create easy looks and balance the offense. That kind of short-handed rotation often leads to stagnant stretches, more isolation, and tired legs late, especially on the second night of a back-to-back, which undercuts the raw scoring averages. Chicago's side of the equation is not perfectly smooth either. With Zach Collins out and both Patrick Williams and Josh Giddey questionable, there is at least some risk that their offensive rhythm is choppy or that they lean more heavily on a shorter, more defensive-minded lineup if one or both misses out. Even if one of them returns, it can sometimes take a bit to integrate that change smoothly, especially in a game where physicality and intensity might be elevated. All of this adds subtle friction to what might otherwise look like a free-flowing offensive environment. The numbers show that both teams can score, but the combination of missing playmakers, possible fatigue on the Clippers' side, and the potential for a more grind-heavy, half-court style reduces the likelihood of both teams fully matching their season scoring averages at the same time. In matchups like this, a few empty trips, a couple of long scoreless stretches, or tighter defense late can be enough to drag the final total underneath the projected number, even if the game still feels competitive and entertaining. So while the box scores across the season paint these teams as capable scorers, the particular circumstances of this contest point more toward a slightly muted offensive night rather than a full-blown shootout. The combination of efficiency, yes, but also fatigue, injuries, and possible tempo control lines up more neatly with a game that finishes below the posted total than one that soars past it. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Minnesota Timberwolves versus Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz play host to the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Delta Center on Tuesday night. It looks like a classic spot where one team is hanging on while the other is trying to stomp the gas again. Minnesota just dropped games to the Rockets and Spurs, and they see the Bulls next, but that does not erase the fact they have still won 17 of their last 25. They were rolling before San Antonio tripped them up on Saturday. Even in that loss, coming back from a 25-point hole to have a shot late says a lot about their ceiling and their stubbornness. Utah is coming from the opposite direction. They lost to the Spurs and Mavericks. They get the Spurs again after this, and they have dropped 10 of their last 12. That is not just a bad week, that is a long slide. On the injury front, the Timberwolves are still without Terrence Shannon Jr., with Naz Reid listed as questionable. The Jazz have already ruled out Lauri Markkanen, George Niang, and Bryce Sensabaugh, which strips away a lot of what little stability they had left. That difference in available talent matters a lot, especially when one side is already struggling. Even 55 points from Anthony Edwards were not enough on Sunday as Minnesota lost their second straight to the Spurs. All eyes swing right back to him on Tuesday because this time he faces a defense that sits near the bottom of most meaningful categories. Logic says he is lining up another massive performance. The last 5 meetings back that up. He has averaged 38.4 points per game against the Jazz. Right now, Utah is basically at his mercy whenever he walks into the building. The Jazz limp home after a 4-game road trip in which they lost every outing, giving up 123, 138, 144, and 128 points. Only one of those opponents even had a winning record, which is a brutal sign for where this team is headed. Markkanen did not play last night against the Spurs, yet Utah still managed to cover a big number thanks to Keyonte George dropping 30 and Jusuf Nurkic adding 20 with 9 boards. Once again, it is a double-digit margin they are being asked to stay inside, and history is not exactly offering them a warm hug going into Tuesday. Minnesota has owned this matchup for a while now, winning 10 of the last 11 meetings and 6 of 7 in Salt Lake City. Edwards and company have covered in 13 of 20 against the Jazz, which is a pretty clear track record. With Utah's best player likely out again and the team drifting toward full-scale tank mode, the road side has every reason to come in with confidence. Honestly, this is one of those spots where you do not need to get too cute. The stronger roster, the better form, and the head-to-head edge all lean in the same direction. As our first pick for this matchup, the Minnesota Timberwolves to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full-game side pick. Now, setting the spread talk aside and just looking at how the scoreboard might light up, this matchup has points written all over it. Not because anyone suddenly forgot how to defend, but because both teams bring plenty of firepower and one of them has been leaking points like a sieve. The Timberwolves are averaging 120.3 points on 48.6% shooting and allowing 114.6 points on 46% shooting. They knock down 37.4% of their threes, hit 75.3% at the free throw line, and pull in 44.8 rebounds per game. That combination of efficient shooting and strong work on the glass gives their offense a lot of second chances and clean looks. The Jazz are not shy on offense either. They average 119 points on 46.2% shooting and give up 127.3 points on 49.2% shooting. From deep, they are at 35%, and they convert 80.2% of their free throws while grabbing 44.6 rebounds per game. So they can absolutely score, they just struggle badly to stop anyone. You can feel how that mixes with Edwards' recent form. He is coming off that 55-point explosion, and he already has a history of torching Utah with that 38.4 points per game average over the last 5 meetings. When a scorer like that meets a defense that ranks near the bottom across the board, the ceiling for his production and the team's overall output gets nudged higher almost by default. Utah's recent road trip tells the same story from another angle. They allowed 123, 138, 144, and 128 points across 4 straight losses. Only one of those opponents had a winning record, so it is not as if they were facing elite offenses every night. That is the kind of defensive slide that does not usually correct itself overnight, even with the comfort of home. At the same time, the Jazz still find ways to put points up, even short-handed. Against the Spurs, George poured in 30 and Nurkic added 20 with 9 rebounds, which shows they can still reach into the bag and find scoring from different places. When you have one team that scores efficiently and another that plays fast enough and loose enough on defense to keep the door open, you get the recipe for a game where the total climbs steadily. So you have Minnesota bringing a high-scoring, efficient attack, Utah bringing a capable offense and a very shaky defense, and recent form screaming that stops might be optional for long stretches. It would not be surprising to see long runs of trading buckets, a few big spurts from Edwards, and the Jazz doing just enough on their end to keep the pace and the total elevated. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.